Right now, somewhere in the world, someone weaker than you is winning. Not because they're smarter, not because they're more talented, but because they look more certain. They walk into a room as if it's already theirs. They speak without hesitation, every word landing like it was carved in stone. They act like they deserve everything they touch. And the world believes them. Meanwhile, you hesitate. You overthink. You wait for the right moment, the perfect words, the right feeling. You wait until you feel ready, as if readiness is a signal that will one day arrive. And as you wait, someone else, with less skill, less talent, less depth, takes what could have been yours. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's not something you either have or don't have. Confidence is a weapon that can make the unqualified look like leaders and the brilliant look invisible. If you don't carry it, someone else will, and they'll use it against you. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. Power doesn't belong to the best. It belongs to the most certain. History remembers the decisive, not the hesitant. Kings have been crowned not for their virtue, but for their audacity. Generals have won wars not because they had the largest army, but because they moved first, before doubt could infect their ranks. The truth is uncomfortable. You've been told that talent wins, that skill is all that matters, that if you work hard enough, someone will notice. But Machiavelli would laugh at that. In the game of power, the world doesn't reward those who deserve to win. It rewards those who look like they've already won. And right now, you must ask yourself, how many times have you lost not because you lacked ability, but because you hesitated? How many times have you been outrun by someone you could outthink in minutes? Simply because they acted while you were still doubting? That ends now. You weren't born hesitant. You weren't born timid. You weren't born with that subtle bend in your spine that makes you lower your voice when challenged. That was given to you, and not all at once. No, it was delivered in small doses. A lifetime of tiny, invisible cuts. From the moment you could walk, people told you where to go, when to stop, and how to behave. If you sat quietly, you were praised. If you waited your turn, you were called well-mannered. If you kept your hands to yourself, you were good. And every time you complied, you were rewarded, not for strength, not for boldness, but for obedience. And you learned. You learned that stepping forward without asking was rude. You learned that speaking without permission was disruptive. You learned that your natural impulse to take was something to be ashamed of. Years passed, and that raw, fearless instinct you were born with was dulled, sanded down until it was smooth and quiet. You stopped moving first. You stopped speaking first. You stopped acting until you could be certain the world would approve. What lives inside you right now is not the man you were meant to be. It's a servant, and not a bold, dangerous servant, but a loyal one. A servant conditioned to please, programmed to submit. It's polite. It's agreeable. It flinches at disapproval. It feels safest when someone else is in control. You can hear him, can't you? That voice in your head that whispers, "Don't say that, they won't like you. Wait until the right time. Tone it down, you don't want to seem arrogant." That voice is not your ally. That voice is a prison guard, and you've been tricked into believing it's your conscience. Machiavelli understood that voice cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be negotiated with. It must be killed, not ignored, not softened. Killed, because here is the truth. As long as that voice lives, you will never move with the certainty required to rule your own life. The servant will always pull you back, always make you second guess, always convince you that the moment is almost right, but not quite. And while you wait, someone else will take what could have been yours. Machiavelli didn't whisper. He commanded. He didn't wait to be understood. He acted and let others struggle to keep up. He didn't ask for permission to lead. He moved first and forced the world to adapt. Your first battle is not against the world, not against your competition, not against the people who doubt you. Your first battle is against that obedient shadow living in your own mind. And here's the strategy. Every time it tells you to shrink, expand. Every time it tells you to explain yourself, pause. Every time it urges you to apologize, stare. Every time it tells you to wait, move. Confidence is not built through comfort. It is forged in defiance. Defiance against the version of yourself that still boasts. The first rule: if it makes you small, kill it. If it makes you hesitate, confront it. If it makes you weak, deny it. If it tries to be liked, laugh at it. The world will tell you to be nice, to be agreeable, to be kind. But kindness without power is just weakness wearing a friendly mask. Nice men are tools, useful for a time, and discarded the moment they stop being convenient. Your goal is not to be feared by strangers. Your goal is to be feared by your former self. Because the moment you kill the servant, the ruler inside you wakes up. And once he wakes up, he will never go back to sleep. If you've lived most of your life as a servant, then your instincts are wrong. They are not yours anymore. They've been hijacked, rewired, turned against you. The very impulses you trust, the urge to wait until the moment is right, the itch to explain yourself so no one misunderstands you, the reflex to smooth over tension before it grows uncomfortable. Those are not strengths. They are chains. Understand this. The servant in you is clever. It speaks with your voice. It disguises fear as patience. It dresses weakness in the costume of politeness. It tells you you're being smart by holding back, when in reality, you're just hiding. This is why your first true weapon is inversion, the art of doing the exact opposite of what your weaker nature demands. You flip the script. You reverse the pattern. The servant in your mind craves safety. You give it exposure. It wants to explain itself. You give it silence. It wants to shrink. You expand. Picture this. You walk into a crowded room. Every instinct in you says, don't draw attention. Keep your head down. Wait until you've warmed up. That's the servant talking. Inversion means you move through that room with presence. Shoulders squared, back straight, pace unhurried. You make your arrival an unspoken statement. I belong here. And if I didn't, I wouldn't cared. Or imagine someone interrupts you mid-sentence. The servant wants to laugh it off, to nod along, to pretend it didn't matter. Inversion says you stop. You don't rush to reclaim the floor. You let the weight of the interruption hang in the air. And when you resume, you do it slowly, calmly, as if the pause was yours all along. Inversion is not about being the loudest. It's about being the most certain. It's about breaking the loop of self-erasure that has been playing in your head for years. When you speak to decide, not to suggest. When you hold silence, that silence is not emptiness. It is control. The insecure man talks to fill space. The confident man lets space work for him. Machiavelli would tell you, do not aim to be agreeable. Aim to be immovable. Every act of inversion is a strike against the servant. The more you do it, the weaker he becomes. At first, it will feel unnatural. You will feel the urge to soften your posture, your tone, your presence. Resist it, because in those moments of resistance, you are retraining your instincts. Let me make this clear. Inversion is not about theatrics. It's not about creating artificial dominance. It's about replacing your default reflexes with deliberate action. If your instinct says avoid eye contact, you hold it. If your instinct says hurry through your words, you slow them down until every syllable feels like a decision. If your instinct says nod in agreement, you stay still until you've decided whether you truly agreed that this long enough, and the shift becomes permanent. You will stop asking yourself, do I have the courage to act? And you will start acting without even naming it courage. Inversion will become your nature. The hesitation you once felt will dissolve. You will no longer need to talk yourself into decisive action. It will happen before doubt even wakes up. And when that happens, people will notice. They won't be able to explain it. They'll just feel it. From this point on, Your inner compass is not what feels safe, but what kills the servant. Every choice you make runs through that filter. Will this make me smaller, or will it make me undeniable? The world bends to men who defy their weaker nature. Inversion is how you prove, first to yourself, then to everyone else, that the old you is gone. You no longer wait for the right moment. You create it. Powerful men don't announce themselves with noise. They arrive with presence. Presence is not about what you say. It's about what you radiate before you speak. It's the unshakable energy that makes the air feel different when you walk into a room. And here's the paradox. Presence often comes from saying less, not more. Most men think they need to fill every silence, to prove their intelligence, to lace every conversation with demonstrations of what they know. But the more you talk, the more you give away. Every unnecessary word is a window into your mind, a map others can use to navigate and control you. Machiavelli understood this in the courts of power. In the palaces and chambers where kings plotted, the man who spoke the least often held the most influence. He was the one others watched carefully, the one whose silence felt heavy enough to demand interpretation. The noisy men revealed themselves too easily. The quiet man remained a mystery. You must understand, silence is not emptiness. Silence is a weapon. When you walk into a room, do not look around seeking approval. Do not scan the faces, searching for signs that you are welcome. You are not there to be welcomed. You are there to observe. You are there to absorb. You let others rush to prove themselves, to display their status, to flaunt their value. While you calculate in stillness, your posture should speak before your mouth does. Shoulders set, chin level, movement slow, not because you are uncertain, but because you are in no hurry. Predators do not sprint unless it is time to strike. Until then, they move with measured control, conserving their energy, watching everything. Most men move too fast. They speak too quickly. They interrupt. They nod excessively. All of it is a performance, an unconscious attempt to win approval from someone whose opinion they shouldn't even value. But the man who moves slowly commands the rhythm of the room. When you speak, you don't speak to impress. You speak to decide. Every word you deliver should feel like a conclusion, not a suggestion. And here's the effect. People start to listen differently. They stop thinking about what they want to say next, and they start calibrating themselves to you. And when others speak, you let them go first. You let them reveal their hunger, their insecurity, their weakness. Because the man who talks first often reveals too much. He tells you what he fears. He tells you what he wants. And once you know that, you hold leverage. Your presence should create gravity. People should feel pulled toward you without knowing why. And that gravity doesn't come from trying to be liked. It comes from not needing to be liked at all. If they respect you, good. If they don't, better. Because indifference to approval is the final form of power. Understand this. Presence is not arrogance. It is not theatrics. It is the quiet certainty of a man who has already chosen himself, who knows he is enough without validation. If the room wasn't yours when you entered, by the time you leave, it will feel like it was. Not because you demanded it, but because you never had to. Words are not just sounds. They are weapons. They are currency. They are a test of who you are before the world decides whether to treat you as a peer or as property. Most men waste this weapon. They speak as if they are asking for permission to breathe. You can hear it in their voice, the slight upward tilt at the end of a sentence, a tone that pleads. Am I making sense? Do you approve? You can see it in their body, shoulders dipping mid-sentence, a nervous smile that apologizes for existing. You can feel it in their rhythm, words spilling out too quickly, as if silence is a threat. This is not speech. This is surrender. Machiavelli understood that truth and persuasion are not the same thing. People do not follow the man with the most facts. They follow the man who sounds like he cannot be denied. If you sound sure, they assume you are right. If you sound hesitant, they decide you are not worth listening to. Even if you are, in fact, correct at so you must speak like a ruler. And speaking like a ruler has nothing to do with shouting, with talking over others, or with filling the air with your voice. It is not about volume. It is about weight. That a ruler's voice carries weight because it moves slowly. When you speak, your words are not released in a rush to escape you. They are chosen. They are placed. They are delivered with the patience of someone who knows the world will wait for him to finish. Picture a man in a crowded room. He doesn't fight for attention. He doesn't raise his voice above the chatter. He waits. And when he does speak, the room bends toward him. Not because he demanded it, but because the gravity of his presence pulled them in. That is what you must become. Your tone should be calm, grounded, final. You do not plead. You do not beg to be understood. Each sentence is a decision, a conclusion, not an opening for negotiation. You burn the escape hatches from your vocabulary. No more, I could be wrong. No more, that's just my opinion. No more, I don't know if this makes sense. But those phrases are not harmless. They are confessions. They tell the world, I am already prepared to retreat from my own position. Instead, you own your statements. You deliver them without soft edges. And you let others feel the silence that follows. Because silence after a strong statement is not emptiness, it is pressure. It dares others to challenge you. Most won't. When someone does challenge you, you never defend. Defense is an admission that the other person's frame is legitimate. A ruler does not step into another man's frame. He forces the other to stand inside his. If they say, you're wrong, you do not scramble to justify yourself. You say, that's incorrect. If they demand reasons, you decide whether it serves you to give them. And often, it doesn't. This signals something few men ever master. Your reality is not up for debate. Your time, your attention, your energy. None of it is cheap enough to be spent on pointless explanations. Your voice is not just your sound. It is your signature. And tone is the ink. Lower your pitch. Slow your tempo. Strip the nervous energy from your delivery. Let your words feel as if they were carved into the air. Permanent, deliberate, unshakable. This is how kings speak when they return from exile to reclaim their throne. This is how generals speak before a decisive battle. This is how the man, in the corner of the room, saying almost nothing, still manages to control the entire atmosphere. The less you speak, the more people wonder what you might say next. The less you explain, the more they assume you know something they don't. The more you control your tone, the more they feel you control everything. When you master your words, you don't just communicate. You command. You can walk tall. You can speak like a ruler. You can command the room with your presence. But if a single insult can pull you off balance, you are not powerful. You are exposed. Most men never master this part. They polish the surface, the posture, the tone, the image, but their emotions still belong to everyone else. A whisper of disrespect, and they flare up. A small compliment, and they melt. A moment of silence, and they spiral into doubt. Machiavelli understood that the true war is not the one fought in public. It is the war waged inside your own mind. This is the invisible battlefield, and it decides everything. Here's the harsh truth. Once people know what moves you, they know where to press. Once they know how to make you react, they own you. And an owned man is not dangerous. He is manageable. And manageable men are disposable. So you must become unreachable. Not emotionless, unreachable. You feel everything, but you act on nothing. Unless it serves your objective. Anger, fuel, doubt, data, praise. A potential trap. When someone insults you, the servant inside will want to explain, to defend, to prove them wrong. The ruler inside will observe, measure, and ask, why now? What do they gain? What do they fear? When someone praises you, the servant will bask in it. The ruler will question, why now? What do they want in return? When someone ignores you, the servant will chase. The ruler will become colder, quieter, more deliberate, and wait for the weight of his absence to do the work. Silence becomes your weapon, not your wound. Psychological reachability is the reason most men are easy to control. Tell them they're not enough, they over-explain. Praise them, they start chasing you. Withdraw from them, and they beg to reconnect. This is not power, it's programming. Breaking that programming means killing 3 habits. 1. The need to be understood. 2. The fear of rejection. 3. The reflex to react emotionally. The need to be understood is the root virus. You don't exist to be understood. You exist to shape the field you're playing on. The fear of rejection is the leash. A Machiavellian mind doesn't seek entry into someone else's world. It controls access to its own. And the reflex to react emotionally? That is the biggest tell. The moment they can make you flinch, you've told them where to aim next time. Control here means more than composure. It means insulation. It means that no matter what is thrown at you, your internal state is chosen, not given. You are the fortress. You decide who enters. You decide what gets in. And if something doesn't serve you, it dies outside your walls. When you master this invisible war, the outside world can scream, whisper, tempt, provoke, and you remain the same. Cold, calm, calculated, untouchable, because true confidence isn't in how you look or how you speak. It's in the terrifying realization others have when they finally understand. They can't move you. Most men are easy to read, easier to control. Their patterns give them away. Their reactions betray them. You can almost script their behavior before it happens. Tell them they're not enough, and they'll scramble to prove you wrong. Compliment them, and they'll soften, lean in, and start trying to please you. Pull away from them, and they'll chase, desperate to close the gap. This is not power. This is programming. And until you break the code, you are nothing more than someone else's tool. Breaking the code means making yourself unpredictable. It means severing the reflexes they count on. It means burning the behavioral map they've been using to steer you. The first loop you break is the need to be understood. The servant inside you clings to this. It wants to explain itself, to justify its actions, to make sure no one sees it in the wrong light. But a Machiavellian mind doesn't care if you understand it. In fact, it thrives on being misunderstood because confusion is leverage. The less they know about your motives, the harder it is to counter them. The second loop is the fear of rejection. Most men will contort themselves just to avoid hearing the word no. They will water themselves down to fit in, to belong. But when you break the code, you stop seeking entry into other people's circles. You become the circle. You decide who's allowed in. Rejection loses its sting when you realize it's not you who's being denied. It's them. They are losing access to you. The third loop is the reflex to react emotionally. Reactions are tells. They show your hand. They tell the other player where your weaknesses are. So you remove the reflex entirely. You still feel, but you know. Longer hand those feelings over to the world. Breaking these loops changes how people move around you. At first, they'll test you harder. They'll push, poke, and prod, trying to find the old buttons they used to press. When they find nothing, they'll get nervous. They'll start questioning their own approach. They'll realize the code they once ran on you no longer works. And that's when you become dangerous, because a man who cannot be predicted cannot be preempted. They can't bait you into fights you don't want. They can't charm you into giving up position. They can't guilt you into stepping back. You move when you decide. You speak when it serves you. You respond only if it brings you closer to your goal. When you break the code, you stop living inside someone else's program. You become the programmer. You write the rules. You decide the sequence. This is when your presence changes. Not just in the room, but in their minds. You become harder to read, harder to influence, harder to forget. They start asking themselves questions they've never had to ask about you before. What's he thinking? Why didn't he react? Does he know something I don't? And the answer is yes. You know exactly what they're doing. You've seen this game before. You've played it. And now, you control it. Breaking the code doesn't just make you untouchable. It makes you unforgettable. Rejection is one of the most feared experiences in a man's life. It feels personal. It feels final. It feels like a verdict on your worth. But that's only because you've been taught to see it through the servant's eyes. A servant hears no and assumes it's a statement about his value. A ruler hears no and knows it's nothing more than a data point, a position marker on the chessboard that hears the truth. Rejection is not personal. It is positional. When someone rejects you, it simply means they believe they can survive without you. That's all. And in that knowledge lies the power. Because now you know exactly where you stand, and more importantly, where they stand. The weak man reacts to rejection with wounded pride. He begs, he explains, he argues, or he collapses into self-pity. The powerful man remains unaffected. He doesn't even see it as loss. To him, rejection is information. It's a message saying, you were too available, too obvious, too easy to reach. Good. Now you know what must be destroyed. Step 1. Never appear affected. The moment you show pain, they win. Not because you've lost them, but because you've confirmed you needed them. And need is the death of power. Your legend cannot afford that fracture. Step 2. Withdraw your presence like a weapon. What happens when something you've taken for granted disappears? You feel the weight of its absence. You realize its value. This is exactly the sensation you create. You don't explain. You don't announce your departure. You vanish. And while they feel the void, you build. Step 3. Reframe the narrative. Rejection only has power if it looks like you were chasing something. So rewrite the story for yourself, not for them. You weren't rejected. You were observing. You were testing. You gave them the opportunity to recognize value, and they failed. And in that failure, they revealed everything you needed to know about their vision, their discernment, their ability to spot power when it's in front of them. Step 4. Convert rejection into control. Rejection is clarity. Most men live in confusion, unsure of who respects them, who fears them, who uses them. Rejection cuts through the fog. It shows you exactly where your influence does not yet reach. That is a map for your next expansion. Step 5. Weaponize your comeback. This is not revenge. Revenge is emotional. A Machiavellian return is calculated. You reappear only when your presence is impossible to ignore, when your results speak louder than anything you could say, and when they see you again, stronger, sharper, untouchable, you give them nothing. No smirk, no gloating, not even a glance. Because here's the final play. Rejection is never defeat. It is the filter, the test, the fire that burns away the weak connections in your life. It removes the unworthy before they can waste more of your time. When you treat rejection as information rather than injury, you will see it for what it really is, an advantage disguised as loss. And the day you stop fearing it is the day it starts working for you. There is a point in every man's evolution where change is no longer cosmetic. It is not about posture, not about clothing, not about tricks of speech. It is about identity. You are no longer simply acting confident. You are no longer performing power. You have become it. This is when people start to feel it before they see it. They can't explain why they stand differently when you enter a room. They can't explain why they choose their words more carefully around you. They can't explain why your silence is harder to endure than another man's shouting that you've stopped chasing. You've stopped asking. You've stopped waiting. The man you were before, the one who sought permission, who hoped for acceptance, who lived for approval, he's gone. Buried. Forgotten. In his place stands something sharper, harder, and infinitely more dangerous. A weapon. And here's what makes a weapon terrifying. It doesn't need to be used to have power. The mere knowledge of its existence changes behavior. You don't have to threaten anyone. You don't have to prove anything. Your certainty is felt in the way you occupy space, in the pace of your movements, in the controlled rhythm of your voice. Machiavelli knew that a weapon and used is often more valuable than a weapon swung too freely. The moment you show your full strength, You give others a chance to measure it. But when you hold it back, when you let them guess, they will always imagine it's greater than it is. And often, their imagination will do more work for you than your reality ever could. Now, your absence is as powerful as your presence. You can disappear for weeks, months, years, and when you return, the ripple is immediate. People remember. People recalculate. People wonder what you've been building in the shadows. This is the highest form of control. You are not just a player on the board. You are the one who decides when the game begins and when it ends. You set the pace. You choose the battlefield. You decide which moves are possible for everyone else. And the irony is, by the time you reach this point, you won't feel the need to show it. The ruler inside you no longer needs to prove he's a ruler. He simply is. This is not self-help. This is not motivation. This is not inspiration. This is the transformation of a man into something the world can no longer touch. A man like this does not fade into memory. He does not blend into the background. He becomes a reference point in the minds of others. The man they adjust themselves around. The man they remember in silence. The man whose absence is louder than most people's presence. You have become scarce. You have become deliberate. You have become untouchable. And in this form, you are no longer simply living in the world. The world is living in reaction to you. From this moment on, you are no longer shaped by the world. You shape it. You don't adjust yourself to fit in. You make others adjust themselves to fit around you. You don't need their approval. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their permission. You have killed the servant. You have awakened the ruler. You have sharpened yourself into a weapon that the world cannot ignore and dares not control. They will test you. They will tempt you. They will try to provoke you, to see if the old man still lives somewhere inside. And each time, you will meet them with the same cold, measured stillness. You will let them speak. You will let them guess. You will let them burn their energy trying to figure out the man who no longer reacts, who no longer explains, who no longer bends. And when they finally realize they can't move you, that's when you've won, because you're not chasing power anymore. You are power. You have become the man they watch in silence, the man they plan around, the man whose name stays in their head long after you've left the room. And that, not fame, not applause, not acceptance, that is what makes you unforgettable. This isn't self-help. This isn't motivation. This is war, and you are the weapon.